The rain hadn't stopped since Portland. I gripped the steering wheel of my Honda, squinting through the wipers at the slick two-lane road that wound through our neighborhood in Lake Oswego. It was 8:47 p.m. on a Thursday in November. I'd promised my son Lucas I'd be home before his bedtime. I'd promised him pancakes in the morning and a story about the brave little fox tonight. But Dr. Hensley had called in sick, and I'd covered the last 4 hours of her shift at the pediatric urgent care clinic downtown. 4 hours of ear infections, croup coughs, and one terrified toddler with a marble lodged in his nose. I was bone tired. My scrub smelled like antiseptic and applesauce. Our house sat at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac, a craftsman-style bungalow with a deep porch and a yard that Ryan always said he'd fence in for a dog we never got. As I pulled into the driveway, something felt wrong before I even cut the engine. Every window in the house blazed with light. Music thumped through the walls, something with a heavy bass line that I could feel in my chest even from outside. And there were 2 cars in the driveway that weren't ours. One was a white Lexus SUV I recognized immediately. It belonged to Megan. Megan Hale. My best friend since freshman year at Oregon State. The woman who'd stood beside me at my wedding, who'd held Lucas the day he was born, who I trusted with everything. Her car in my driveway on a weeknight shouldn't have alarmed me. But paired with the music and the blazing lights and the strange, buzzing energy radiating from the house, my stomach clenched. I left my bag in the car and walked to the front door. It was unlocked. The moment I pushed it open, the smell hit me. Garlic, melted cheese, something fried. The living room looked like a children's birthday party had exploded. Streamers dangled from the ceiling fan, a half-deflated balloon arch sagged against the bookshelf. The coffee table was buried under paper plates smeared with frosting, juice boxes, and torn wrapping paper. In the middle of it all, 2 children I recognized as Megan's twins, Aiden and Sophie, were shrieking and chasing each other with foam swords, leaping over couch cushions that had been dragged onto the floor. My husband Ryan stood at the kitchen island, pouring wine into a glass. Megan sat on the counter beside him, her legs swinging, laughing at something on her phone. Their shoulders were touching. Ryan saw me first. His hand jerked, and red wine slopped over the rim onto the white countertop. "Elena." His voice cracked upward. "You're early. My shift ended at 8. It's almost 9. Where's Lucas?" "Oh, he's around." Ryan set the glass down too hard. He was being difficult earlier, so we gave him some quiet time. "He's fine." Megan slid off the counter, smoothing her shirt with an ease that made my skin crawl. "Hey, girl. We were just celebrating the twins' half-birthday. Ryan said you wouldn't mind." I didn't even look at her. "Quiet time where, Ryan?" He shrugged. "The laundry room, I think. He wanted to play with the twins' new stuff and they weren't ready to share yet. You know how he gets." I was already moving. The laundry room was at the back of the house, past the kitchen, down a short hallway. The door was closed. I grabbed the handle and pushed. The overhead bulb was off. The only light came from the thin gap under the door behind me. It took my eyes a moment to adjust, and then I saw him. Lucas was sitting on the cold tile floor between the washing machine and the wall. He was in his pajamas, the ones with the little rockets on them. His knees were pulled up to his chest, and he was holding Patches, the stuffed dog I'd given him on his 3rd birthday, pressed against his face. He wasn't crying. That was worse. He was past crying. His body was doing that shuddering, hiccuping thing that happens when a child has sobbed so long the tears just stop. "Baby." My voice broke. I dropped to my knees on the hard tile and pulled him into my arms. He was cold. The laundry room had no heating vent. In November, the tile floor was like ice. "Mommy." His voice was small, muffled against my neck. His fingers gripped my scrubs like he was afraid I'd disappear. "Sophie said Patches was ugly." She pulled his ear. I told her to stop and Aiden pushed me. "Daddy said I was being rude to our guests and I had to sit in here until I learned manners. He said I couldn't come out till the party was over." I don't know how long I'd been standing there, holding my son, feeling his small cold body against mine, when the rage hit. Not hot, explosive rage. Something colder. Something that crystallized in my chest like ice forming on a lake, fast and silent and absolute. I stood up with Lucas on my hip. He weighed 38 pounds now, but I barely felt it. I walked back into the kitchen. Ryan and Megan were whispering to each other, their heads close. They sprang apart when they saw me. Ryan started talking immediately. Before you overreact, it was literally 5 minutes. He was throwing a tantrum and the twins were upset. I just needed him to cool down. 5 minutes. I repeated it flatly. He's been in there long enough to cry himself out in a dark, unheated room. In his pajamas. On a tile floor. In November. Megan tried her smile, the one that had charmed every professor and boyfriend and boss she'd ever had. Elena, come on. Kids need boundaries. He was being rough with the twins. We were just trying to stop talking. I said it quietly, but something in my tone made her mouth snap shut. I looked at Ryan. My voice was calm, terrifyingly calm, even to my own ears. Get them out of my house. Now. Elena, Ryan began. Now. Something in my face must have told him I was past the point of discussion. He looked at Megan. She grabbed her purse and called the twins, who whined about leaving their new toys. I didn't care. I stood in the hallway holding my son until the front door closed behind them and the Lexus backed out of the driveway. Ryan turned to me with his hands up, his expression already shifting to that patronizing half-smile I'd grown to despise over the past year. Okay, drama queen. Can we talk about this like adults? I didn't answer him. I carried Lucas to his room, changed him into warm pajamas, wrapped him in his favorite blanket, and lay beside him on his bed. I read him the Brave Little Fox story. I rubbed his back until his breathing evened out and his grip on Patches loosened. Then I eased myself off the bed, closed his door, and went into the bathroom. I locked the door, sat on the edge of the tub, and called the only person I knew who could help me. Diana Reeves answered on the third ring. She was a family law attorney who'd handled the custody case for one of my colleagues at the clinic. I'd saved her number months ago, back when things with Ryan first started feeling wrong, hoping I'd never need it. Diana, it's Elena Voss. I'm sorry to call so late. I need your help. I'm leaving my husband tonight. 15 minutes later, I had a plan. Diana was precise, methodical, and utterly without sentiment. Do not engage with him. Do not explain, do not argue, take Lucas, and go somewhere safe. Do not use your joint credit card. Do not tell him where you are. Can you do that? Yes. Good. Be in my office at 8 a.m. We'll file everything at once. I hung up and went to Lucas's room. I packed a bag as quietly as I could. Clothes for 3 days, his toothbrush, Patches, a handful of books. I always kept a portable car seat folded in the hall closet. I'd bought it months ago when my car was in the shop and I needed to use a rental for a week. I'd never gotten around to returning it. I grabbed it now. Ryan was in the living room, watching TV, a fresh beer in his hand, acting as though nothing had happened. That was his superpower. He could erase anything, rewrite any event to make himself the hero or, at worst, the innocent bystander. He didn't even look up when I passed through the hallway with Lucas in my arms and a bag over my shoulder. I drove to a Residence Inn off Highway 217. The front desk clerk didn't blink at a woman checking in at 11 p.m. with a sleeping child. I set Lucas down on the queen bed, tucked the blankets around him, and sat in the dark, staring at my phone. It was already starting. Ryan had texted 4 times. Where are you? This is insane. Elena, bring my son home. You're acting crazy. I swear to God, if you don't answer me, I'm calling the cops. Fine, have your little tantrum, you'll be back by morning. I screenshotted everything and emailed it to Diana. Then I turned my phone to silent and watched my son sleep. His face was peaceful now, but in the glow of the parking lot lights through the curtain, I could still see the dried tear tracks on his cheeks. Something inside me that had been bending for a long time had finally snapped clean. Diana's office was on the 14th floor of a glass tower in downtown Portland. She looked exactly as she sounded on the phone. Sharp, compact, no nonsense. She wore reading glasses on a chain and had a handshake that could crack walnuts. She listened to everything without interrupting. The party, the laundry room, Megan, Ryan's dismissiveness. When I finished, she removed her glasses and set them on the desk. The laundry room is strong. A 5-year-old locked in an unheated room on a cold night as punishment for not sharing. Any judge in Multnomah County will see that for what it is. Emotional abuse and child endangerment. Here's what we're going to do. She laid it out. Emergency motion for temporary sole custody. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Motion to freeze joint accounts, restraining order if necessary. She moved fast. By noon, the papers were filed. By 3 p.m., a process server was at my house. I knew the exact moment Ryan received them because my phone erupted. 23 calls in 2 hours. I let everyone go to voicemail. The first voicemail was angry. The second was threatening. The third was begging. By the 6th, his voice had changed. It was raw, shaky, stripped of the confident veneer he wore like armor. Elena, please. These papers say emergency custody. They're trying to take Lucas from me. I'll do anything. I'll get Megan out of our lives. I'll go to counseling. Please just call me back. Don't do this to our family. I saved every voicemail. I forwarded every text. Diana had told me his desperation would be our greatest asset, and she was right. The next morning, my phone rang at 7 a.m. It was Janelle, the office manager at the clinic. Elena, I'm sorry to bother you, but your husband just called the front desk. He was screaming. He said you had a nervous breakdown and kidnapped Lucas. He demanded your schedule and your home address. I told him I couldn't give out employee information and he said he'd sue the clinic. I wanted you to know. I closed my eyes. Thank you, Janelle. If he calls again, please direct him to my attorney. I gave her Diana's number. He was trying to poison every corner of my life. My workplace. My reputation. I imagined him telling the story his way, the concerned husband, the unstable wife who fled in the night. It was a narrative he'd been rehearsing for years, and he'd almost convinced me it was true. 2 days later, I was in the small apartment I'd rented through a corporate housing service, using my personal savings account that Ryan didn't know about. I'd opened it a year ago, when the first cracks appeared, when Megan started coming over 3 nights a week and Ryan started sleeping with his phone under his pillow. I'd been putting away $200 from each paycheck, just in case. Just in case had arrived. Lucas was coloring at the kitchen table when the building's intercom buzzed. I checked the camera. My blood ran cold. It was Megan. She stood in the lobby, arms crossed, jaw set, looking up at the camera like she knew exactly where it was. I almost didn't answer. Diana's voice echoed in my head. Do not engage. But a colder, more calculating part of my brain was already reaching for my phone, opening the voice recorder app, pressing record, and sliding it into my back pocket. I let her up. She came in looking around the apartment with open contempt. This is pathetic. You gave up a 4-bedroom house for this. You have 3 minutes, Megan. Start talking. She dropped the act immediately. You need to stop this, you're destroying Ryan. He hasn't eaten in 3 days. He's a mess. And for what? Because a kid had a timeout? A timeout in a dark, freezing room. While you threw a party in my house. God, you're so dramatic. Her voice rose. You always have been. Little Miss Perfect, Little Miss Martyr. You think you're better than everyone because you're a doctor? Ryan sees through you. He always has. I stayed very still. And what exactly does Ryan see? A cold, controlling woman who uses her kid as a weapon. She stepped closer. You think I don't know what this is really about? You're jealous. You've always been jealous. Because Ryan actually talks to me. He trusts me. He comes to me when you shut him out, and yeah, maybe I understand him better than you ever did. I let the silence hang for 3 seconds. Are you saying you're in a relationship with my husband? She caught herself, but too late. The flash of panic in her eyes told me everything. I'm saying he deserves better than you, and if you think some custody stunt is going to work, think again. I'll testify that you're unfit. I've seen how you were with Lucas. Cold, distant. Always at the hospital. Ryan is the one who actually parents that child. The audacity was breathtaking, but I kept my face neutral. Thank you for coming, Megan. You can leave now. She left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frame. I pulled out my phone and stopped the recording. I played back the last 30 seconds, her voice, clear as a bell. He trusts me. He comes to me. I'll testify that you're unfit. I called Diana. She answered on the first ring, as though she'd been waiting. Tell me something good, Elena. Megan was just here. I recorded everything. She admitted to the relationship. She threatened to commit perjury. There was a pause. Then Diana laughed, a short, sharp bark of professional delight. Elena Voss, you brilliant woman, send me that file right now. But the high didn't last. One question gnawed at me. How had Megan found me? I'd told no one about this apartment except Diana and Janelle. Then I remembered. Find my iPhone. Ryan and I had shared our locations for years. I'd disabled it on my phone when I left, but I'd forgotten about the iPad I'd left in Lucas's room at the apartment. I grabbed it, checked the settings, and there it was. Location sharing, on. Ryan had been tracking me through Lucas's tablet. I turned it off, my hands shaking. Then I texted Diana. He's been tracking me through a shared device. That's how Megan found the apartment. Diana's response was immediate. Document it. Screenshot everything. This is gold. 3 days later, I was in court. Multnomah County Courthouse, 9th floor, the Honorable Judge Patricia Whitfield presiding. I sat next to Diana in a navy blazer and pressed slacks, my hands folded in my lap, my face composed. Inside, every nerve was on fire. Ryan arrived with his attorney, a man named Gary Huff who had a loud tie and a louder voice. Ryan looked terrible. Unshaven, red-eyed, his shirt wrinkled. He stared at me across the courtroom with something between hatred and desperation. Huff went first. He painted a picture of a loving, devoted father who'd been blindsided by his vindictive wife. He described the laundry room incident as a standard timeout, 5 minutes at most, in a room that was perfectly safe. He called me emotionally unstable, career-obsessed, and accused me of parental alienation. Ryan took the stand. He was good, I had to admit. His voice cracked at the right moments. He talked about reading Lucas bedtime stories, coaching his t-ball team, making him breakfast every morning. He said Megan was just a friend, a family friend who helped with the kids when I was working late at the hospital. He said I'd always been controlling, always critical, always putting my career before my family. When Huff sat down, Diana stood. She adjusted her glasses, she took her time. Mr. Voss, you testified that Megan Hale is simply a friend, is that correct? Yes. And you testified that you're a hands-on, devoted father who would never endanger his son. Of course. Diana picked up a small digital recorder. Your Honor, with the court's permission, I'd like to play a recording made 3 days ago. It's a conversation between Megan Hale and my client. Huff jumped up. Objection. This is ambush testimony. Judge Whitfield looked at Diana over her glasses. Miss Reeves? The respondent testified under oath about the nature of his relationship with Miss Hale. This recording directly contradicts that testimony and is relevant to the question of credibility and the child's welfare. I'll allow it. Proceed. Diana pressed play. Megan's voice filled the silent courtroom. He trusts me. He comes to me when you shut him out. You're jealous. You've always been jealous. Then, I'll testify that you're unfit. I've seen how you are with Lucas. Cold, distant, always at the hospital. I watched Ryan's face as the recording played. The color drained from his skin like water from a sink. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. His hands gripped the edge of the witness box so hard his knuckles went white. Diana stopped the recording. She looked at Ryan. Mr. Voss, does that sound like a friend? Or does it sound like someone who shares your bed and is willing to lie under oath to help you keep custody? Silence. Judge Whitfield's voice was ice. Mr. Voss, I take perjury in my courtroom extremely seriously. She turned to Diana. Miss Reeves, I'm granting your client's motion. Temporary sole legal and physical custody to the petitioner. The respondent's visitation is suspended pending a full psychological evaluation. I'm also issuing a protective order. Mr. Voss is to have no contact with the petitioner or the child and is to remain at least 500 feet from their residence, the child's school, and the petitioner's workplace. The gavel fell. The sound echoed through the room like a door slamming shut on an old life. But the story didn't end there. A week after the hearing, I was going through the financial documents Diana had subpoenaed. Ryan hadn't worked steadily in 2 years. He'd told me he was consulting, freelancing, building a network. I'd believed him because I wanted to believe him because doubting him meant doubting the life I'd built. But the bank statements told a different story. Every month for the past 14 months, exactly $500 had been transferred from our joint savings to an account I'd never seen. The receiving entity was listed as RMH Ventures, LLC. I searched the Oregon Secretary of State's Business Registry. RMH Ventures. Registered agent, Ryan M. Voss, Megan E. Hale, listed as managing member. I kept digging. In a folder on our shared cloud drive that Ryan had apparently forgotten about, I found a spreadsheet. It was a detailed ledger of every dollar that had flowed through RMH Ventures. The monthly transfers were small compared to what I found next. 3 large withdrawals, $15,000, $22,000, and $31,000, all sent to something called Cascade Capital Partners. The notes read, Investment Phase 2. Marketing Fund. Consulting fee, Megan. I called Diana at midnight. She didn't complain. She listened. Then she said something that made the floor tilt under my feet. Cascade Capital Partners. I know that name. There was a piece in the Oregonian last month. The principal was indicted for running a Ponzi scheme. She paused. Elena, your husband didn't just steal from you. He put your money into a criminal enterprise. This is federal. Within 48 hours, I was sitting in a conference room with 2 FBI agents. They were calm, precise, professional. They asked questions that peeled back layers of deception I hadn't even imagined. Did I know about RMH Ventures? No. Did I authorize any transfers? No. Had Ryan ever mentioned Cascade Capital? Never. I handed over everything. The spreadsheet. The bank records. The cloud drive access. I felt like I was watching my marriage autopsied on a stainless steel table. Diana's strategy shifted. We paused the divorce proceedings. Let the federal case build pressure. When the indictment comes, Ryan will have nothing left to fight with. He'll surrender everything. 3 weeks later, it happened. I was at the clinic, between patients, when my phone buzzed. It was a news alert. I opened it and saw my house on the screen. FBI agents in blue windbreakers were walking Ryan out the front door in handcuffs. Behind him, also in handcuffs, was Megan. Her hair was wild, she was screaming something at the cameras. Ryan kept his head down. The anchor's voice was steady. Federal agents arrested 2 Portland area residents this morning in connection with an ongoing investigation into Cascade Capital Partners, a firm accused of defrauding investors of over $3 million. Ryan Voss and Megan Hale are charged with wire fraud and conspiracy. Authorities say Voss embezzled over $170,000 from his wife's accounts to fund the scheme. I sat down in the break room and stared at the screen. A nurse asked if I was okay. I said yes. For the first time in months, it was true. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. Ryan appeared by video from the Federal Detention Center in Sheridan. He wore an orange jumpsuit. He didn't look at the camera. When the judge asked if he accepted the terms, full custody to me, no visitation, no claim on assets, his voice was flat. Yes, Your Honor. It took less than 4 minutes. Diana walked me out of the courthouse into pale winter sunlight. It's done, she said. A month later, a letter arrived. Federal prison stationery. I recognized the handwriting, though it was shakier than I remembered. Elena, I don't expect you to read this. Megan turned on me. She told the prosecutors everything was my idea. She got 2 years, I got 8. I think about Lucas every day. I think about that night, the laundry room. I keep trying to tell myself it wasn't that bad, but I can't anymore. It was bad. I was bad. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean anything now. Don't write back. There's nothing left to say. Ryan. I read it once. Then I folded it, walked to the kitchen sink, struck a match, and held it to the corner of the paper. I watched the flame eat his words, his apology, his self-pity. The ash crumbled into the drain. I ran the water until every trace was gone. We moved to Bend in the spring. A small house with a big yard on the east side of town, near the river. The Cascades rose in the distance, snow-capped and clean. Lucas started at a new school. He made friends fast, the way kids do when they're finally allowed to be themselves. He stopped flinching when doors closed. He stopped asking about his dad. I opened a free pediatric clinic for families in crisis. I called it the Patches Project, after the stuffed dog my son had clutched in a dark laundry room on the worst night of our lives. We served 37 families in the first month. On a Saturday in June, Lucas and I drove to the Deschutes River. We took off our shoes and waded into the shallow current, the water cold and sharp around our ankles. Lucas laughed, a sound so pure and unguarded that it stopped me in my tracks. He splashed ahead, chasing minnows, his arms spread wide like he was trying to hold the whole sky. Mom? He turned back, water dripping from his fingers, the sun behind him turning his hair to gold. Yeah, baby? I like it here. It's quiet. I waded to him, knelt in the river, and pulled him close. The cold water soaked through my jeans, but I didn't care. I pressed my face into his hair and breathed. Me too, buddy. Me too. He wriggled free and ran downstream, laughing again, and I stood there in the current and watched him go. The river kept moving. The mountains didn't care about courtrooms or prison cells or the wreckage of a life built on lies. They just stood there, ancient and patient, holding up the sky. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could hold it up too.